What's going on, guys? It's Travis and Kyle with the NPCs, and it's time for another quick save. In today's quick save, we are here to talk about one thing and one thing only, and that is the future of VR headsets. That's right. At WWDC 2023, Apple happened to join the foray of VR and AR headsets by introducing the Vision Pro, their first entry into virtual reality and augmented reality. It looks like they're going to be offering us a headset that not only has 4K screens per eye, but also has a screen on the outside so you can see the person's eyes while they're wearing the headset, and definitely puts a lot of emphasis on productivity and focusing on the workplace alongside some things more for home use as well, too. Of course, here on the Quick Save, I'm joined, of course, by Kyle to talk about more of this as well. Kyle, what's up?
Oh, not a lot. Excited about all sorts of VR headset news aside from Apple. It's just coming out of the woodwork. All these new crazy headsets, more slim, streamlined, and Apple's is just unbelievable, especially with the eye pass-through cameras.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a rather interesting thing here. So let's talk about Apple first because, there's stuff with Meta and HTC that's been announced over the last couple months,
hmm
though, too. But what's interesting is about Apple's entry into this is really what they're offering with this environment. So what they're going to be having running on this system is going to be its own operating system. Reality OS is what it's being called. And it uses cameras on the front and cameras on the bottom to actually handle looking around at everything in the environment, as well as not even requiring you to use a phone or your computer or anything else of the sort to be able to actually go and control anything on the display itself, like on the headset itself. You'll actually do things such as like tap your fingers together, kind of like this, to actually make things happen. You'll actually be able to swipe through different things too. You'll be able to interact with the keyboard as well on the screen, or you could even just use the built-in voice assistant Siri to interact with the things that are on there too. So you can do voice to text if you want to send messages back through iMessage. But one of the key things, of course, is with anything we talk about in the NPCs is the gaming part. And what's funny enough to talk about with it is that they are going to be including support for Apple Arcade.
hmm
Um, but another interesting part, though, is that if you own a Mac, Kyle, you can actually project the screen of your iMac or your MacBook to the Vision Pro and interact with the desktop there. So if you use a browser to, say, play Xbox like game streaming or any of the cloud-based gaming services out there, it's very
hmm
possible that you could also play games while wearing the headset. However, of course, they're not going to be VR titles like we know, like Beat Saber and, of course, the more recent
Right,
Resident Evil
right.
4 VR.
Which is funny you say that because Mac is notorious for not really supporting current games or, a model of gaming outside of their arcade. And of course we actually had Kojima at the developers conference trying to entice other developers to come over to Apple and translate their product over to Apple. So we potentially could see more gaming related stuff in the future, but I think right at the moment you are going to be kind of relegated to the arcade and to cloud gaming if you want to utilize the headset, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it seems like the way Apple's trying to position themselves on the gaming part, because obviously the Vision Pro is just, obviously it's got that level of interactivity to it, but right now it definitely seems more like just a head-mounted display, more than it
Mhm.
does a, more than it does for like virtual reality gaming stuff we see with, say, like the Meta Quest or the HTC Vive, the Index, and all
Right,
the other
right.
offerings out there. Um, but they did announce as a part of WWDC that they are apparently working on their own version of, or at least have incorporated some type of support for Proton, which is what we
Mhm.
know. which is what we know Valve to be using for the Steam Deck to be able to render certain games in that in the Linux environment. Well, Apple's Mac OS environment is technically a Unix branch, I think is probably the right way to put it. So they're actually finding a way to get Proton to work on their environment to allow you to play games. And I think I even saw a GIF somewhere where somebody had actually gotten Cyberpunk 2077 to run on a newer MacBook running their Apple's own internal M2 silicon.
See, and I think that's entirely possible. I mean, the processing power is there. It's just it's not necessarily tailored for it. So there's a lot of workarounds that you would have to do to get games like Cyberpunk running, at least currently, unless you kind of utilize those packs for Proton, and maybe I don't know, a lot I've seen a lot of people do the Hackintosh thing and just sideload Windows because it's a lot easier at the moment.
Yeah, the biggest problem right now, though, is that it's tougher to sideload Windows onto the newer silicon, mostly because
Hmm.
there's no real support for it. So there are a lot of people in the developer community who are not really happy that they can't run virtual machines that say run Windows or something on the
Right.
machine itself. Obviously, you can with older MacBooks and older Macs that are running Intel processors, but yeah, they're kind of stuck at the moment right now. However, even with all of that said, it's kind of neat to see like Apple actually push into gaming on Macs other than just what we've been doing on iPhones and iPads as of late, or not even as of late, like really for years now. Um,
Hmm.
but there's one interesting part though that comes down to the rest of this headset though, and we can kind of talk about some of the other VR headset stuff that was announced too. Is the price and the form factor. So let's talk form factor
Yeah.
first. So the form factor actually relies on a tethered battery. And this was done to make the headset more lightweight. However, now you need to carry a battery pack in your pocket. Um, it looks like if someone was to have taken the back off of two old like iPhone 3Gs and glued them together to make whatever this actual case is with the cable coming off of it. But then that runs into the back of the headset or to the side of the headset, and then that will give you, I believe, it's 2 hours of runtime.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because of that 2 hour period, obviously this isn't going to be something you're going to be able to sit back and even watch a full movie on. I don't even know if you can tether further by having it plugged into power somewhere else for allowing extended periods of time.
I would
Uh,
imagine you would have to
Maybe.
be able to, especially being able to tether into the Mac monitor. I would assume that Apple would, have your power solution also potentially tethered from the PC as well in that instance. But I mean, it's hard to
Yeah.
say. I mean, Apple, is known for kind of zany, off the wall um, things that kind of either hit or miss. So it it'll be a wait and see on that portion unless we get more information on that front.
Yeah, and it looks like the way the tethering works to be able to display like your MacBook screen up on there is going to be through some sort of wireless tech. So whether it's going to be some sort of
Oh,
ad hoc networking between the MacBook and the headset, uh, or if it's going to require you to be on the same Wi-Fi network just as your MacBook or your iMac. I don't think they really delved into that far of the details there, but they definitely did show off in their
so you
presentation about it.
probably you probably have to take the headset off, turn it upside down, dock the battery, and unplug the headset from the battery or something weird like that in order to charge it.
You also have to do a backflip. You also have to be able to do 20 push ups 6 different times. And you also need to recite the Declaration of Independence verbatim in Latin.
Well, I'm just saying we know about how Apple's mouse charges, so
Oh, yeah, I know exactly. I knew where you're getting with that. Uh,
yeah.
but the big part, though, really to talk about is the price. So we
Hmm.
know that any company that releases something brand new that they've never done before generally will charge a premium on something in the first run. And that's kind of been given for just about anything. I mean, like, look at foldable phones and how much it costs to get a Galaxy Z Fold or even any of these other foldable devices, how much they've cost. And now costs are actually kind of coming down on those. So we know for any first generation tech, it's going to be expensive, but I don't think a lot of people were expecting it to be this expensive. The current price for this device, when it releases at the beginning of next year, is going to be $3,499.
Ooh.
Yeah, and apparently, so the stream, I didn't get to the point of the price when they were actually presenting all of this, but what they were showing in the stream wasn't necessarily like what was being shown to people, like to the press who were there in the audience and that, which I guess they put this up on a big screen at Apple campus and had them sitting out there watching this. But apparently, there were a lot of groans and grunts about the price. And
Yeah.
there were leaks that came out that even said that the price was going to be around this anyway, too. So it shouldn't have necessarily come to a shock. I think there were just a lot of people holding out that this was going to be cheaper. But I think we know, especially for first time technology like this, that we're not going to actually see we're not going to see any sort of actual price reduction on stuff like this until like the second or third generation. This is really built for either the people who can truly afford the Apple tax or for the people who want to start developing things that are specific to the Reality OS and the Vision Pro environment.
Well, and it's funny you say that too, because Marquez Brownlee got a chance to play around with the headset and said it's definitely not necessarily for the masses, at least in its current state. I mean, it's definitely for early adopters, like
Right.
the first iPhone was, like the Apple Watch was. I mean, it's something that they're probably going to have to progress from, especially if they stay in the market. But then again, I mean, you look at where the MetaQuest, had its roots and where it's currently at, especially with the Pro. The MetaQuest Pro just came down in price, if I'm not mistaken. It's like $900 to $1,000, depending on where you get it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up Meta because they're the next one to talk about here too. And they decided because they knew, of course, all the rumors were out and abound saying that Apple was going to announce theirs. So they decided to hop in and announce the Quest 3 about 2 or 3 days before the announcement of the Vision Pro on Monday. And so the Quest 3 was announced, and it looks like it's going to be not only smaller, it's going to be 40% thinner and lighter, but it's going to be starting at $499. And that's for, I believe, a 128 gigabyte model. Not a lot of details on it, especially, but we can at least glance here from the images off of Dextero of the headset itself. Is that it's going to have, at least we know from even the presentation, that it's going to have pass through color cameras on it, so that you'd be able to see everything in full color on the outside without taking off the headset. It will definitely have the hand tracking built into it as well. So that way, if you're playing some sort of, say, tabletop game and you don't have to use a controller, you can actually just interact with stuff right on the projected environment that's in front of you. The controllers are changing too, so they don't have the rings on them, similar to the Meta Quest 2 or even the Meta Quest 1. So it looks like they've done some changes there to the tracking. It looks like it will also have some sort of docking capability for charging, because I can see here even in the picture as well that it's got some pogo pins on the very bottom of it. So it might have some sort of dock that it can slip into and charge like the Quest Pro. But even with something like this, I mean, for Meta to get ahead of them and at least announce something like this, kind of a different market for this headset versus the Vision Pro, don't you think?
I think so. I really feel like from what Apple showed, the Vision Pro is definitely tailored potentially more towards like workflow or maybe an Apple Power user. Um, at least in its current state. Whereas the MetaQuest Pro, or I guess not even the Pro, the 3 that's coming out, is definitely tailored more towards your average consumer, your enthusiast who wants to play games, who might want to watch movies every now and then. But a lot of the entertainment they're going to be taking in is going to be from gaming on the headset, I feel like.
Yeah, I think so. Like I have the Quest 2, and I'll admit I haven't used it lately, unfortunately, but it definitely is like it definitely would be used more for gaming. Like I tried watching
Mhm.
YouTube videos in it. I did sign into Netflix on it and did try watching some stuff there. I did try some of the not only the stuff on YouTube that's just like regular videos, but also some of the 3D VR specific videos too. And those were
Right.
fine. But definitely the experience on the MetaQuest seems to be more for the actual gaming part of it. I think for the socializing stuff, I know as much as the metaverse is trying to be stood up, and to be quite honest, I don't think it's going to happen like the way that Mark Zuckerberg thinks it does. Um, but like VR chat for sure with something like this will probably, offer at least some other unique benefits going forward too. Just with improved tracking, like improved tracking, not only as it relates to the actual environment around you, but also for being able to potentially do stuff without needing the controller in the first place too, or controllers, excuse me. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I think that is definitely positioned a little differently. Plus, the Quest is the successor to the Rift and what Oculus has created since 2012. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of things here where the price obviously has come down. Now, there's also the Quest Pro, which was announced earlier this year, and that of course is definitely a that's definitely another one of those power user offerings starting at $1,500. But you're right, it did. I believe there was also the price drop too.
Yeah.
Um, but of course, its gimmick is again being wireless. It's got the battery built in. It definitely focuses more, I think, on the gaming side. It definitely, with its price, has a little bit more of like the enterprise application stuff too. Um, but again, I mean, this is a little bit more open for things versus like even the Vision Pro, though.
Right. And I almost don't know if it's necessary to compare the Apple headset with and the Meta headset to I guess other headsets right at the moment because really and truly, as far as it goes, they're kind of our only wireless or hands-free options. Or I shouldn't say hands-free, but wireless options where you're not tethered to a computer or tethered to some other device in order to actually be able to utilize the device in general.
Yeah, you can actually pull the device right out of the box, charge it up, and go through the setup process to connect it to your Wi-Fi and just be on with your day. Like you don't have to go
Yeah.
through any other layers of complex setup, especially now that they've rescinded the requirements for say the Quest, where you need to actually have a Facebook account. You can now set up a separate Quest account or some sort of other non-Facebook tied
Right.
account.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at what's currently out on the market, even as far as like other headsets that aren't necessarily mentioned all the time, like the Vive or the HTC Vive or the HP Reverb, or even I want to say there's another one that they do a little bit more higher end. I think it's like P Pico or Pixmar or something like that. But they do like a lot of higher end headsets that are like $1,500 to like $3,000, but it's like for 8K video. So it's not necessarily like your enthusiast grade that would compete with something like your MetaQuest or your Apple headset.
Yeah, I remember the talk about like the Pimax as well because I think
That's what
Pimax
it
had a
was, the Pimax.
yeah, I think Pimax also had a different version as well too, one that wasn't like this because the Pimax like it has a screen that ends up being docked in or like what appears to be a tablet more than anything. I believe Pimax
Yeah.
also had another headset that was also coming out too. Um, but really, it's where things kind of come down to these key differences, especially like we kind of evaluate more in the gaming space, especially we're a gaming channel, we do gaming content.
Hmm.
I think one of the key things though is just what's the offering going to be like for gaming right now, and I don't really see the Vision Pro as a big threat at the moment. Um,
I don't either.
I mean, we've got whatever Valve is working on for their next
Hmm.
generation VR AR headsets. We've obviously
Right.
got the Meta Quest 3 that's going to be coming out here sometime, I imagine, the next 4 to 6 months. Quest Pro is already out. We've still got the Quest 2, which also took a price drop back to its original price. We've got support for the PSVR 2 out there if you own a PlayStation 5. You can still go buy a Vive or an Index if you wanted to, or even a Vive Pro. I mean, the options are not as constrained anymore. If anything, I think the Vision Pro might be more of a kind of like potential push in the industry to kind of look at what the offerings are for VR and just say, well, what can we do different? What can we do to compete here without having to hit that $3,500 price that Apple is doing? What can we potentially modify with our existing experience? And will something like this drive more consumer demand for VR, AR headsets for those who can't afford something like the Vision Pro?
I think that'll be the most interesting aspect to see is if it'll drive more consumers to pick up headsets. Because currently, I feel like even though that it's a really popular market with Meta, especially being out on the shelves, readily available for people to pick up, and like you said, you can open the box, charge it up, and you're ready to go play a game, within 20 minutes of setup or whatever. Um, but you look at something like that, and um, I think the market's changing, and maybe it will get more people to drive to the the VR experience, I guess. Um, I don't know. It'll be hard to say because Apple is kind of a trendsetter in the industry. Especially the power users drive a lot of the market for what occurs in I guess the Apple environment and what we see come out of Apple. So it'll be interesting to see, if they launch another headset, what the price point will be, in the future. But I would like to see the effects of, what it does to the MetaQuest 3 and the MetaQuest Pro, especially since it was not very well received at launch. And, maybe people will see that more as the affordable power user experience and they'll start flying off the shelves.
I think so too. I think so. Any other thoughts though on this before we wrap up this quick save?
I think that's about it for my end.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I don't think there's really much else other here to discuss on this one right now, other than, yeah, if you've got $3,500 burning a hole in your pocket and you are completely invested into the Apple ecosystem, then hey, go pick up a Vision Pro when it comes out at the beginning of next year and have some fun with that. Here's to hoping that maybe you can do some more stuff instead of, productivity and collaboration stuff on it. Here's to hoping maybe you can play some games on it. But until that time, we'll sit back here with our other VR headsets and carry on until the next best thing comes out.
Absolutely.
So with that, thanks everybody for tuning into this quick save. Of course, if you like this, be sure to go ahead and subscribe here as well too. So when we do drop a quick save, you'll be notified when that video comes up. And of course, if you like listening to podcasts, be sure to go listen to the NPCs Weekly News Roundup podcast as well too. You can go find all the links to all the different podcast platforms we're on over on our homepage at anchor.fm/the-npcs-podcast. Go find out exactly what platforms we're on and subscribe today. Thank you so much everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time.
Laters.